Repetition is the father of learning. Shalom, all praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Chakodash. Double honors to my apostles, the great millstone, and Shalom to the hopeful elect. This is Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 1. Thus said Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, behold, I will raise up against Babylon, and against them that dwell in the midst of them, that rise up against me, a destroying wind. Now Babylon represents America. So Yahweh Shemashah say he will raise up against Babylon, which is America, and against them that dwell in the midst of them, a destroying wind. And that destroying wind is going into the nuclear destruction. And that's going to be caused by these other nations sending missiles to Babylon to destroy it. And it's going to take 200 million warheads to leave Babylon the Great desolate. This is Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 23. Yea, a mighty wind shall stand up against them, and like a storm shall blow them away. Thus iniquity shall lay waste the whole earth, and ill dealing shall overthrow the thrones of the mighty. So that wind, that storm, is going into the nuclear destruction that's coming to Babylon the Great, aka America. Yahweh Shemashah is going to put the spirit on these other nations to come against Babylon the Great, and they're going to shoot their missiles at her to leave it desolate. Jeremiah 51:2, it says, and I will send unto Babylon fanners that shall fan her and shall empty her land. And those fanners are the nuclear missiles. This is Revelation chapter 9, verse 16. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. So the 200,000 is equivalent to 200 million warheads, right? That's going to be coming from these other nations, such as Russia, China, Iran, Korea, and also America allies. They're going to shoot off their missiles. It says, and thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them having breastplate of fire and of jacinth and brimstone. That's going into the body, the armor of the missiles. And the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions. And out of their mouths issue fire and smoke and brimstone. So it says, and the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions. Now we know that the power of a lion is its head. A lion uses its head to defend itself and to attack. And the head of the horses, the head of the missiles represents the cone, the top of the missile, which is the warhead. It says out of their mouths issue fire and smoke and brimstone. Yeah, because in the warheads, once it hits its target, it's going to leave the target desolate. It's going to burn its target. So the fire is going to be coming out of the warhead. As soon as they hit the target is going to catch on fire. It says by these three was the third part of men killed, by the fire and by the smoke, and by the brimstone which issue out of their mouths. Now the third part of men represents Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. You have the sons of the Most High, which are the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and Israelite foreigners. You have the sons of men, which are the heathen nations. And you have the third part of men, the sons of the wicked, which is Esau, Edom, the so-called white race. It says, which issue out of their mouths, going into the head, the cone, the warhead, all right? Because that's where the fire is going to be coming from. The thermonuclear fire is going to be coming from the warheads. It says, for their power is in their mouth and in their tails. So the power of the missile is in the warhead. It says, and in their tails. Yeah, because you're going to have fire in the back of the missile propelling its target, propelling the missile to its target. It says, for their tails were like unto serpents. Yeah, because the Apostle John saw the missiles in the vision moving like snakes. It says they had heads, which are the warheads, and with them they do hurt. Yeah, because they're going to leave its target desolate. And 200 million warheads is coming to Babylon the Great, aka America, in the near future. So those are the fanners that Jeremiah chapter 51 is talking about. I'm going to read again. Jeremiah 51 and 2. We will send unto Babylon fanners that shall fan her and shall empty her land. For in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about. And that day is coming. And the missiles are going to leave Babylon the Great completely desolate. Let's get Ezekiel chapter 35, verse 1. It says, moreover, the word of Yahweh Shema Shai came to me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir and prophesy against it. Now what is Mount Seir? Genesis 36 and 8. Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. And these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites in Mount Seir. So Mount Seir represents Esau, Edom. Modern day Mount Seir is Babylon the Great, aka America. Ezekiel 35 and 2, Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir and prophesy against it. And you see the prophets on the highways and byways telling all the nations the judgment to come. Right? We're telling our people to come back to their power or be destroyed. And we telling these other nations, starting with Esau, Edom, this kingdom is about to go down and they're about to go into captivity. It says, Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir and prophesy against it, and say unto it, Thus saith the Lord power, behold, O Mount Seir, I am against it, and I will stretch out my hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. And that's what the prophets are doing. We're telling Esau, Edom, that Yahweh Shema Shah is against you. He's at odds with you, all right? You're his enemy, and he's going to destroy your kingdom. And this is the prophet's job. Real quick. Jeremiah chapter 28, verse 8. The prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms of war and of evil and of pestilence, right? And right now we're in a great kingdom, all right? We're in Esau's Edom rulership, his dominion, the so-called white man, all right? And we're prophesying against it, telling him what's coming. And what's coming is a day of trouble, great evils, all right? World War III is coming, all right? We tell him that his kingdom is about to be destroyed and he's going into captivity. Back in Ezekiel 35:3, it says, and said to it, thus saith the Lord power, behold, I am, O Mount Seir, I am against thee, and I will stretch out my hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. And I will lay thy cities waste, and thou shalt be desolate, and thou shalt know that I am Yahweh Shemashah. All right, and how is the Lord going to leave Mount Seir desolate? By nuclear destruction from the 200 million warheads, and also from our Lord Yahweh Shah and the chariots, right? Because you're going to have laser beams, all right? Elements from the chariots that's going to play a part in the destruction as well. Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 3 says, against him that Bennett let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifted himself up in his brigadin. Now, the archer, the modern day archer, are the missiles, as I read Revelation 9th chapter, 16th verse through 16. Those are the archers. The archer is symbolic to the missiles. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 14 says, put yourselves in array against Babylon, round about, as going to these other nations, Russia, China, Iran, etc., right? It's going to aim their missiles. It says, all ye that bend the bow, shoot out, spare no arrows, right? So these missiles are going to be shot from these other nations to Babylon the Great. It says, spare no arrows. Yeah, because, you know, once these missiles be shot, you ain't gonna have missiles, you know, just waiting, sitting there in the silos. All the missiles are gonna be shot off. So no missile is gonna be spared. All of them are gonna be shot at Babylon the Great. It says, for she has sinned against Yahweh Shah. Yeah, and this is a very wicked kingdom. You know, this place does everything contrary to the scriptures. So they got to be destroyed. Finishing off Jeremiah 51, it says, and spare ye not her young men, destroy ye utterly all her hosts. So Yahweh Shah said, destroy all of her armies, all right? This shows you that Yahweh Shah, he's not a respecter of persons. This is Romans chapter 2, verse 11. For there is no respect of persons with the Most High. So there's no partiality, there's no favoritism with Yahweh Shah, right? If you're not his elect, and if he make that call, if he make that hit, it's gonna be done. No matter who you are, young, old. Let's get that. This 1 Samuel, for example, 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 1, it says, Samuel also said unto Saul, Yahweh Shah sent me to anoint thee to be king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore hearken thou unto the voice of the words of Yahweh Shema Shah. Thus said Yahweh Shema Shah of hosts, meaning armies, says, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. You see, Yahweh Shema Shah is not a respecter person. He sent the hit out. He says, spare them not. He says, slay both man and woman, infant, meaning baby, and suckling. It shows you how about Shema Shah is no joke. Another example, let's get Ezekiel chapter 9. In verse 4 it says, and Yahweh Shema Shah said unto them, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. Let's go into the word mark. Hebrew word is dawah. Dawah. And it says, mark as a sign of exemption from judgment. So this mark represents those that are exempt from judgment. So I'm going to read again, Ezekiel chapter 9 verse 4. And Yahweh Shema Shah said unto them, said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh, that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. And to the others he said in my hearing, go ye after him through the city and smite, meaning to kill. Let not your eye spare, neither have ye pity. Yeah, pity means mercy or compassion. Here's the point, it says, slay utterly old and young, both maids and little children and women. But come not near any man upon whom is the mark, going into exemption from judgment, and begin at my sanctuary. Then they begin at the ancient men which were before the house. All right, so Yahweh Shema Shah, he sent that hit out again. He says, slay utterly old, young, maids and little children and women. So Yahweh Shema Shah, he's not about favoritism. He's not a respect of persons. Jeremiah 51. Verse 4 says, thus the slain shall fall in the land of Chaldeans, and they that thrust through in her streets. And the modern day Chaldeans are the Edomites, the elite banking families. You have the Rothschilds, the Gettys, the Oppenheiers, right? The Rockefellers, if I haven't said it. No, the DuPonts. These are the modern day Chaldees, right? That deal with witchcraft and sorcery. It says, and they that thrust through in her streets. That's going into all the slaying, all the killings. That's going to be these heathen nations and 2/3 of our people, right? They're going to be slain in the streets. There's going to be a lot of dead bodies laying in the streets on the day of the Lord. Jeremiah 25:33. And the slain of Yahweh Shema Shah shall be at that day from one end of the earth even unto the other end of the earth. So the slain of Yahweh Shema Shah is going to be from one end of the earth to the other. It says, they shall not be lamented, neither gathered nor buried. They shall be dung upon the ground. Right? So ain't going to be no weeping, no mourning, no funeral service for these dead bodies, no burials. No. It says they shall be as dung upon the street. Right? They're going to be like manure. like dog shit laying in the street. And the slain of the Lord shall be what? Let's get that. Isaiah chapter 66. Go to the point. Verse 16. For by fire and by a sword will Yahweh Shema shall plead with all flesh. So this is how the Lord is going to judge. He judged the first death was by the flood, by water. But the second death, this place is going to be judged by fire, all right? From the ICBM missiles, the nuclear warheads, and also from the chariots. This is how the Lord is going to plead. This is how he's going to judge the wicked. It says, in the slain of Yahweh Shema Shah shall be many. So the slain of the Lord is going to be many. It's going to be billions and billions of death, right? Jeremiah 51 verse 5, it says, for Israel had not been forsaken, nor Judah of his power, of Yahweh Shema Shah of hosts. Through their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel. So Yahweh Shema Shah, he didn't forsake the nation of Israel, meaning he didn't abandon, all right? You know, Yahweh Shema Shah, he punished us for our iniquity, for our wickedness, you know. You know, we moved the Most High to wrath. We're going to get that. This Baruch chapter 4 verse 5 says, be of good cheer, my people, the memorial of Israel, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. You were sold to the nations not for your destruction, but because you moved the Most High to wrath. You were delivered unto the enemies. Right? So we moved Yahweh Shema Shah to wrath. We provoked him. Right? So he had to punish us. He chastised us by putting us in the hands of our enemies. Right? By having to serve captivity. Right? Under these different nations. And currently we're in our captivity to this day in the hands of the so-called white man, Esau Edom, right? But Yahweh Shema Shah, he did this to chastise us, all right? This is like a punishment, all right? A scourge, a spiritual whipping from the Heavenly Father. But he have mercy on us because we're his people. Read it again, Jeremiah 51. In verse 5, it says, for Israel had not been forsaken, nor Judah of his power, Yahweh Shema Shah of hosts. Through their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel. Right? Even though he punished us, even though he was very angry with us, you know, he had mercy upon us because we're his people, we're his chosen people. All right? He loved the nation of Israel. You know, through his mercy, you know, he sent Yahweh Shah to die for us. All right, and the elect was brought back to Yahweh through Yahweh Shah by believing on him. All right, give a precept that shows, you know, mercy is only for the nation of Israel. This Psalms chapter 130, verse 7. Let Israel hope in Yahweh Shema Shah. For with Yahweh Shema Shah there is mercy, and with him is plenteous redemption. Right, so mercy is only for the nation of Israel. It's not for these other nations, right? It's Isaiah chapter 14, verse 1. For Yahweh Shema Shah will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel. Mercy is compassion, pity, right? It says, and we yet choose Israel. To choose meaning to elect. And we know that the nation of Israel is the elect of all nations. It says, and set them in their own land. And that's going to the land of Israel. Right now you have imposters over there. Right? The small hats, the Amalekites, the so-called Jews, the Jewish, The word ish means to be like, somewhat. Right? So you have imposters over there. It says, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. And the strangers are going to the Israelite foreigners. Right? Jeremiah chapter 32, verse 37. Behold, I will gather them out of all countries whither I have driven them in my anger. You see? So it's showing you the Lord will have mercy. Right? He scattered us for punishment. All right? You have Israelites scattered throughout the four winds of the earth, north, south, east, and west. All right? But he's going to gather us. All right? Where he have driven them in his anger. All right? We moved them to wrath. Right? And in my fury and in great wrath, you see? And I will bring them again unto this place, and I will cause them to dwell safely. And they shall be my people, and I will be their power. But I'm going to stop right here, Lord willing. I'll be able to do a part 2 of this chapter. With that being said, shalom.